all officers in attendance, councillors, and it's really good to see you, Ferriol, here in person, so welcome. It's nice to be able to meet, also to welcome officers and councillors online, and just to see that this meeting is in person, and any councillors that are online, while you can take part and contribute as part of the debate, unfortunately, due to the Local Government Act of 1972, you cannot vote, but it continues to be something that we lobby and raise with governments on the importance post-COVID of the importance of being able to work virtually and the flexibility around that. The meeting will be streamlined and viewed for the public. So Mario, if you could, when we started recording.
We confirm we're live.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. I just want to remind everybody of the protocol that if all questions and comments come through the chair, if you are in the chamber, if you raise your hand if you want to speak, if you're online, please use your virtual hand. Also, please remember to mute yourself unless you are speaking, and just to note that councillors Gracia, Moima and Balfour are joining online. We have Councillor Lynch and Councillor Ottoboron in the chambers with me this evening. So I would like to say that we have apologies from Aoife and Nicola and Councillor Troughton. A lateness from Councillor Ette, who will be joining online. Thank you. Are there any declarations? So moving swiftly on to item 2, are there any declarations of interest? No. I'm going to move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is minutes from the previous meeting. Before I ask you to agree that, I'm just going to go over some actions. So one of the requests was for member service to capture and maintain a record of attendances to all the mandatory training where possible, and to confirm that all members are sent the links of the crawling after the training. All sessions have been delivered virtually and recordings are in place on the members' intranet. And we also requested member services email members to highlight the importance of completing self-certification forms following the attendance of training. Member services has sent out the Google Forms a number of times just to remind members to update the records. And I just want to note from the last meeting, as it was, I think, recorded, I think in the papers, I believe, that I raised concerns about members' attendance around training, and it wasn't that I was concerned about members not attending training. So many of us have been on so many of those virtual calls, and I'm surprised we haven't all gone Google eyes, because we've all attended lots of training. The query that I was making, so I want that just to be noted, was that while members were attending, I wasn't sure if it was being recorded in a systematic way. So there was no question in my mind or doubt, because I've seen so many members attended. So just thought it was really important to re-emphasise the query was around our attendance, not that members weren't attending, and note that training is well attended by members. So on that note, are members happy to, do members have any questions concerning the minutes? No? Okay. So can I ask everyone to note and agree the minutes?
Agreed.
Thank you. Then we're going to go on to item 4. And just as to establish good practice, we of course look at the terms of reference in every municipal year as a part of a way to ensure that we're doing what establishes good practice and not always just looking at only doing. On that note, I will hand over to Louise to talk through, who's the head of legal and governance, to talk through the terms of reference, and as per, you have up to 5 minutes at your discretion. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. There are no proposed amendments to the committee's terms of reference for this municipal year, so you have those presented before you. You also have, just as Appendix 3, by way of, I guess, an advanced look, how terms of reference are intending to be presented in future as part of the work on the revision to the council's constitution. If council at its meeting, which is now going to be on the 24th of July, the report was prepared before the date was changed. So if council adopt the constitution at that meeting, then terms of reference will be presented in the format that you see, Appendix 3 to this report. And then at your next meeting, again, just for the purposes of good practice, to note the terms of reference in that format. You also have before you a suggested work programme. As always, if members have anything that they would like us to look at in particular during the course of the year, we're always happy to receive your suggestions. So for that, nothing further to add to the report. Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Do colleagues have any questions or comments on the terms of reference? No. So on that note, if we could agree the recommendations, which is that the terms of reference for the standards as detailed in Appendix 1 to be noted, that the work programme for 2023-24 as detailed in Appendix 2 will be approved. Agreed? Thank you. So moving on to item 5, which is the annual report, and this is the standards report that we have annually that provides an overview of the work and activities of the Standing Committee during the last municipal year. And I will hand over again to Louise to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as you've noted, every year you receive an annual report which covers the work of the Standards Committee for the previous municipal year. So this report covers the work of the 22-23 municipal year. I think the report speaks for itself in terms of its content. I'm happy to take any questions on any points that members would wish to raise. I would, however, remind members that in respect of complaints received on alleging breaches of the Code of Conduct, the precise nature and detail of those complaints is confidential, and therefore, whilst I can talk about generalities, I can't go into specifics. However, you may wish to note that the annual report talks about having received 13 complaints for 22-23. That was a reduction on 1 from the year before. And then you'll also note in the report that the highest number of complaints concerned the people not responding or allegedly not responding to resident inquiries, complaints or requests for assistance. So that the number of those complaints has increased and taken, if you like, first place from complaints about social media. However, in all of those cases, that was simply a question of that contact having been overlooked due to volume of emails that councillors receive. And as soon as they were drawn to the attention of those councillors, then prompt and immediate action was taken. Hence why those types of complaints did not meet threshold for further investigation. But as I say, I'm happy to talk more about generalities, but I can't go into specifics.
And maybe just to talk more about the themes, because I think that social media, then, if we caveat complaints of not responding to an email, which is generally, I think in most cases, just the consequence of a busy inbox, to be fair. And if, you know, once you get round to it, you respond, because I think a complaint about the time a councillor takes to respond to an email feels quite different than breaching the Code of Conduct in my view. And I'm not saying that it's not important as an elected member not to respond to your constituents, your residents, of course, but it's just depending on when you get those emails. For example, if it's in the middle of the night, for example, it may be the next morning or a few days after that you get to respond. So yeah, maybe just speak a bit more about the themes and how many around social media would be helpful. Before you answer that, do any other colleagues have any contribution or questions? No? So Louise, if you maybe just respond to that. Thank you.
Yes, you're absolutely right. It is obviously clearly around when councillors are contacted. And obviously, as part of the process, we're obliged to consult with our independent person. And in those cases, it has been overlooked, and then you councillors, as I said, would take action to make contact with them, offer an appropriate apology, and ultimately those matters are not, in our opinion, breaches of the code. There is a difference between how a councillor may respond to a complaint, and the fact that something may have been overlooked in the vast array of emails that I'm sure councillors receive on a daily basis.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's also worth noting that sometimes residents aren't always aware of who their councillor is, so they'll just email a whole range of councillors. Particularly, obviously, we may be aware of our wards and our elected members. Myself, there's been instances where it's felt like I haven't responded to it, but actually I may have probably sent an email. We did it this weekend. We send an email to say, actually, this is yours, and and I guess sometimes that can add a delay, which I guess it's all about expectations of our role as well, and sort of, I guess it may be seen as a vehicle to potentially enhance that person's concern with the council. But yeah, I thought that was worth noting as well, that there is something around sort of people just doing a scattergun approach, and you might not always reply because you sort of automatically think that's not my resident, someone else. But the councillor who is that person's councillor is also included, so it's sort of a safety net. But
Yep. I have a question on this. So I'm aware we have a casework portal where when we raise our members' inquiries, everything is logged on there. My understanding is that council doesn't quite have a CRM system where communication between council and its residents is recorded. And what my question is how can we get to a place whereby a casework portal and a council-based CRM system are integrated, where we're able to keep a record of the correspondence we're having with our constituents other than emails and using spreadsheets?
Thank you. I think that I can feed that back to Councillor Chapman, who is leading on the work that we're doing around the casework review and the complaints, and I think that will sit quite neatly in there, and the ambitious that Councillor wants to see in terms of improving the complaints, and not doing, when you say improve, it always means more, doesn't it, sometimes, but improving complaints and that we have less, and looking at the systems that are in place. So we can absolutely, your suggestion is noted, and we can feed that back there. I think what we're trying to establish here is those standards while we are being elected members, are we upholding them, and what that means around casework. And thank you, Councillor Lynch had mentioned that very same thing. A very, very distraught resident had contacted myself and my fellow councillors, and what I did is immediately copied in their councillor had contacted those councillors as well, because I'm not assuming that because I'm on my emails that they are as well, and they responded to me via phone, and then Councillor Lynch literally picked it up really swiftly. So there is a bit of that. I think there's also a frustration when a resident hasn't got the response they needed, and I can understand that frustration. And then when they copy everybody in, sometimes there's an expectation that everybody should respond, and when they don't hear from everyone, that's also very distressing as well. And it's how we reassure residents that actually, if one person is holding your case, that means that person will see it through and will make sure that it's open and resolved, and won't be closed until it's resolved, because I don't think sometimes residents realise that we can't open more than one case about a resident more than once. If it's open, then they'll only deal with the council opening it has started the case. But thank you. Count that back to Councillor Chapman, though. I think you've made some valuable points, and I'm sure that will help to improve the system that we all want to see. Any other comments or queries on? Of course, Ariane.
Sorry. It was just also
I know most people are in a rush, but out of office to help, because I think what some residents and people would assume that because an email has gone and they've not had an out of office, that message has been read. So they then get frustrated that they've not had a response back. So even if it's, well, I'm away until so-and-so, if it's urgent, please contact X in the meantime, that would also curb that as well.
Councillor Lee.
Actually, just on that note, actually, that is actually does relate to how we are conducting ourselves, actually, because it's something I've brought up, actually, because I've noticed some councillors that were new to the council that were elected last year have got quite snazzy out of office emails, and I'm not quite sure where they all, it's across all different sort of parties as well, but it's actually very clear absolutely what Ferial said, which is, you know, I will respond in a certain amount of time. And I know I've spoken to some service leads around this, around sort of setting expectations around sort of what you can expect in terms of a response time, but also in terms of just a general sort of, you know, if your inquiry is about this, this is sort of what this is what you may have to wait to get X sort of service from the council. So it's something I think I have fed that into Councillor Chapman's work, and because I think you're absolutely right, there's something around how, yeah, I guess it's like I guess it's difficult though, isn't it? So I was away recently, and I think I just sort of purposely wanted to not sort of feel like I wasn't doing anything in my councillor role, so I put an out of office on. But it's difficult because technically we're not there 24/7, but you don't want to sort of look like you don't want to look but I absolutely get what you're saying, Ferial. I think that's something really important around how we have a consistency. And I think, yeah, you're right about saying I've received your email. Not like you're like, you know, when you get an email from like a random
Before I
retailer, yeah.
Before I think that's really helpful, and before I bring Louise in, what I would say is that I included myself in that, we should be more disciplined about out of office, because I must admit that I was away at the cross-party LGA local government conference last week, and I didn't have my out of office on, and I was constantly doing emails through it, and I'm thinking, actually, you know, although we are elected and we absolutely want to advocate for our communities, that our health and well-being has to be at the core centre of what we do, because then we're not at our best self. So I'm talking to myself as well, and I think that discipline, so that someone knows, okay, until I know they're going to get to my email, but actually sometimes saying the other services and helplines that they can contact in the interim, I think is helpful for us to use as well. Louise, I know you wanted to come in.
Yes, I mean, those are incredibly good points, and I'm aware that some members also have almost out of offices on permanently, simply to serve as a, yes, I've received your email acknowledgement, but also for those councillors who have employment outside of being a councillor, to be able to say, look, I work, you know, I will respond to your email, but again, it's that management of expectation to sort of help residents and constituents who contact you to know when things are likely to be read, so that they're not feeling like they are waiting response, or feeling that they're not being responded to.
I was just wondering, Chair, whether or not it would be possible, because I think, given that there is a consistency that across the different, so I don't know if it's just people just thinking that's a good out of office, I'm going to put that on my out of office. I wondered if it might be worthwhile having an example and we could send it round to councillors. Member services might be able to, because I suspect member services have helped those councillors to have that email, because I saw it from someone from the majority group and also somebody in one of the opposition groups as well. And it's exactly the same. It's absolutely what you said, which is, I work between these hours, please contact blah, 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 blah. And I think it would give some consistency then and equity for our residents. Yeah.
So may you reduce the complaints that are coming in around responding to casework, because people feel they have a bit more reassurance in the interim. Okay, Louise.
Yes, but I mean, I think all of the points that have been made this evening are incredibly good and very valid points about, you know, the process of responding to residents, and inevitably, sometimes because residents may not get the answer that they would like, they then, you know, feel that they're not being listened to, not being heard. there is a difference there as opposed to, you know, actually not replying, and also then taking on board the commitments that, you know, practically every councillor also has outside of their role as a councillor, and your ability to be able to respond to things in a timely manner. I'm sure all of you want to respond to things as swiftly as you can. And so it's just about managing those expectations. And, you know, if that were possible, I'm sure that the volume of those complaints would similarly reduce.
Thank you. Any more comments or contributions? Okay, can I ask then the committee to note the recommendation that the annual report for 2023-24 that we will endorse this report and submit to full council. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. So item 5, any other business? I haven't been notified of any other business, but given that we haven't had a long meeting, I think I will happy to take AOBs at the last point. Councillor Mima?
Yeah, I just was asking if I understand that the committee records who is present in terms of who is in the room, but would it not be helpful to say that although me and Councillor Bafour, for example, are not counted as present, we are here, to have that included in the front sheet?
Thank you. So at the beginning of the meeting, I did say who was online.
No, I'm talking about, sorry, I'm talking about the printed agenda.
When we do the minutes?
No, so the information that's published to the public.
Okay, yes, I think if members say they're attending online in the future in time, then I can't see why that shouldn't be an issue. Tessa, you look like you want to indicate.
Can I just quickly come back while you resolve that?
Yes.
I meant, so minutes will be taken of today's meeting and published. The future ones going forward, is that something that we can do?
So I'll say it to Louise, and oh, it's on now. Apologies, it's now on. What I was going to say is that when we are preparing the publication of the agenda packs, all committee members who are nominated members of each committee are listed on the front of the agenda. However, for the purposes of the minutes, we will note who is present in the meeting room because it's a physical meeting, and that will be recorded as appropriate. However, for members who are members of the committee and they have attended virtually, we will note in the minutes that they attended virtually. But for the recording, the actual recording to meet the 6-month rule, we will only record those who were actually physically present in the room.
Okay, thank you, Tessa.
Does that clarify your query?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. On that note, I would like to thank councillors present and online and officers in person and online for attending this evening. I hope that you all have a safe travel home and enjoy the rest of the evening. And if anyone else has further meetings to go to, I hope it isn't too late in the evening for you. Thank you. Mario, if you could end streaming, thank you.